Hey everyone, this episode contains discussion that some viewers might find disturbing. If you are affected by anything, you can find links to sources of support in the description below.
Now, I know this is going to gear us to a slightly different conversation, but just the idea of space and spatial invasion, right? So I don't know if you guys have seen recently, I know Ambush, there was a situation with Ray Black who accused Ambush of sexual assault. Yeah. Justin Bieber had been named as well, although he brought receipts and he's now suing the people who claimed it. We've had people like, what's his name from, is it Russell Simmons?
Yeah.
Russ?
Yeah. From Def Jam.
Right. Now, a lot of men have been claimed or said to have invaded private space, whether it be sexual assault, rape claims. There's a lot of things that are coming to light. Now, I don't know if you know, but the USA have a statute of limitations, whereas the UK don't. And a statute of limitations means that there is basically a time frame of which certain allegations or if you want to bring something to light, have it be prosecuted, it has to be done within a certain amount of time if it's a crime, etc. Whereas the UK don't have that. Do you think that there should be some kind of statute of limitations put in for women who want to come? I'm going to say women for now. I'm not going to say men have not experienced it, but I want to concentrate on women for now. Do you think there should be a statute of limitations for women who want to come forward with sexual assault allegations? And why do you think some women come forward with sexual assault allegations years down the line?
Oh, these are like big questions.
One at a time.
Yeah. It requires a lot of thought, and I guess not even just thought, it requires a lot of unpacking, if you will. I'll start with my yes and no answers and then kind of unpack. First of all, about the statute of limitations, I'm just going to say no. I just feel like whenever you're ready to speak your truth, or whatever it is that you need to say, I don't feel like you should have a time frame in which you should say it. I feel like you should always be able to say it and always bring it forward. So I'm just going to say no. And also for those who have been accused, it's like I always believe that anyone who's been accused of anything should get a trial, like just get a trial, a fair trial or any kind of trial. So for me, it's like, no, let's not have a statute of limitations so that the victim has time to come forward whenever they want to, and then the accused can also have a trial if to say what the situation is. Of course, I mean, I know the law is corrupt, but that aside, I just think like you have to have some sort of fairness to it. And then why do I think it takes time for people to come forward or women to come forward? That's a difficult one. I don't think there's any specific one reason. I think it's just a blend of reasons. It could be absolutely anything. It's such a tough subject because it makes you have to think about your own personal experiences or the experiences of women around you and maybe what they've done and what they haven't done. And like when I was listening to Ray Black kind of go through what was going on with the Ambush situation, and she spoke about her friend saying to her, like, don't do it because to like protect a black man and things like that. Like that really struck a chord with me because I felt like I was reading the same exact situation that had happened in my life. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, God, like, I don't want to hurt this black man because I feel like I need to protect black men. So it's kind of like, but like my thought process was like, bro, I'm having your back, but why didn't you have mine? Like, why'd you do it in the first place? Like, do you know what I mean? It was a bit of a tough one. And so it's like, it's really tough to unpack that. So I feel like women wait for so many different reasons. And I think the number one thing you kind of have to, like the caveat of waiting or when you come forward, is you have to be comfortable and you have to be ready to speak. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with what's happened, and it takes them time to kind of just put together the pieces of what's happened. And so I'll kind of sit on that.
I hear
Can I
you
do a
100%.
quick thing, Luanda, before you say anything? I just want to do a quick thing for anyone watching or listening.
Yeah.
Out of us four who are here right now, have any of you experienced, and if you don't feel comfortable going into detail, I'm not asking you to do so, but have any of us experienced some form of sexual assault? Because I have.
I have.
Yes, I have.
That's 100%. That just shows you how common this is. Like when people say, oh, but it's not but. There's four of us in this conversation and each one of us have experienced this. No. Sorry, Luanda, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys aren't trying to make me cry 2 episodes in a row. You know, it's
Sorry.
not gonna happen,
Sorry,
you know.
girl.
Pull
Take
the
your time.
fires, ladies. Stop it. It's not gonna happen.
Take your time and say it.
I agree with you, Anissa, that I don't think there should be a statute of limitations at all. I think that sex is seen as something for a straight man to enjoy. Sex is seen as something that a straight man has a right to, something that he is owed, and something that he should not be denied. So when we look at the world like that, and then we have women, the thing that we are valued the most for is our sex appeal. That's the thing that you place them. Yeah, our desirability. That's the thing that you place most value on about us. And it's to me, like, it is so ridiculous. And I think that in terms of people who wait to come forward, we need to feel like there has been a space that's created that's safe enough for us to do so.
Sure.
And time again, the world that we live in proves to us that this is not that place. And so recently we have been seeing a shift in awareness, and we've been seeing a shift in victims being vocal. And a lot of the time these cases are from 10, 20 years ago, because even just then, there wasn't that conversation. There wasn't that openness where we could have a space to be like, okay, this happened and I'm not comfortable with that happened, you know? And also we live in such a victim blaming society. So like Anissa says, it takes you kind of a long time to unpack what's happened to you. Sometimes you're in denial about it. Sometimes if you were a child, you don't really realize what happened to you isn't okay. And sometimes you don't have the strength to speak out because you think that you're alone. But the thing that works so well with silencing is that when everyone's silent, no one really realized that we're all having the same conversation. We're all having the same experiences. And so it prevents you from then coming forward with your own, you know. Going back to our victim blaming society, a couple of years ago in Ireland, you guys probably heard about this case, but there was a 17-year-old girl that accused a 27-year-old man of raping her in a muddy alley. And the defense attorney for the accused brought up her laced thong in court to prove that she intended to have sex that evening. And I'm not saying that's the only thing that played a factor, but that man did get off. And then there was obviously a bunch of resulting protests afterwards in Ireland. So going back to the layers that... One second, go. Going back to the layer that it adds being a Black woman on top of that, I think that Black women have a desire to defend and protect Black men in a way that they don't feel the same for us. Generally speaking, they don't have that same desire to defend and protect us, especially not dark-skinned Black women. So when you're a Black woman and you're coming forward with a case, especially when it's against a Black man, you're thinking about the community. You don't get to think of it on an individual level. And like you said, Anissa, with Ray Black, her friend was like, are you going to do that to a Black man though? And with Drew Dixon, who was one of the people who accused Russell Simmons, she's like, I didn't want to destroy the culture, and I love the culture. So I was scared of doing that. So I think that we have to take that layer of being not only approaching it as a Black woman, not as a woman, but as a Black woman as well. And there was someone else in that documentary on the record about sexual assault in the music industry, and she was a Black woman who said, we don't believe white women. We don't believe white women when they come forward. What do you think this world is doing for Black women? What do you think?
Nothing, not a damn thing.
Look, I've got in there. I think there's a lot of things, but in terms of, I think it's important for us to understand why people are saying to protect our Black men, because they're saying that our Black men already have the odds stacked against them. They're already seen as criminals. They're already seen as violent. They're already seen as wanting to take sex from people. And there's this notion that if we then come forward and say something against the Black man, all we're doing is piling on to a pile that society has already put onto them. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm trying to help people who might not understand of protecting our Black men, understand what does that even mean. That's what it means. It's like they already have a tough time. Why are you going to add to it? I don't agree with that. Anyway, in terms of the statute of limitations, I don't know if I think that it should be thrown out completely. because I think about it in the sense, Linda, don't look at me like that, girl. I think about it in the sense of the law, when the law was put in place anywhere, the whole point of it was to protect the people. And law has to be updated as the society and the culture changes. Law wasn't just put in place. It should really be changing as the society changes. So the statute of limitations was put in to protect people so that people, and I'm not talking about sex offenders, I'm talking about in general, so that people don't always have to be fearful of the things that they've done. Let's say for people, when the London riots happened in 2011, people were getting 3 months in prison for stealing chewing gum. Let's say it's your little brother. Seriously, it was madness because they were trying to set an example. So let's say one of our little brothers stole a TV. He was 15 at the time. And then 10 years later, he was never caught. He's now put his life together. He's going uni. He's done that. He's got a good job. And then suddenly they bring up this case from 10, 15 years ago. And they say, yeah, we're going to hold you accountable. The statute of limitations has been put in place to make sure that, taken into account, people can change. Not every crime needs to be prosecuted years and years on, because it doesn't give people the ability to kind of move away from what they've done in the past. Now, in terms of sexual assault and sexual issues, I think we have a problem there, because one of the reasons why people don't come forward, women don't come forward, men don't come forward, because I think we have to include men in this, because a lot of times men aren't included, and then there's a further stigma around coming forward and saying that they've been sexually assaulted. So one of the things is trauma. 100%. Trauma affects people in so many different ways. And with trauma, a lot of people, I read this article in bbc.com, and it was saying how a lot of people don't even feel like they have been raped. It takes a long time for people to even associate what has happened to them with rape. They're kind of like, well, no, he kind of put pressure on me. He removed the condom, but, he said it slipped off. So, and there's a program that's come out called I May Destroy You with Michaela Coel.
Yes.
Guys, you have to watch this. But it talks about sexual assault is so varied. A lot of people don't even know that they've been sexually assaulted.
Yes.
Someone's forced to kiss you. Someone's dry humped you against your will. Someone has forced you to have oral sex. It's so varied. People don't know their rights. And then when they know, they're like, well, then that thing that my boyfriend did to me was sexual assault, and I didn't even know. So I think there really needs to be a lot of education around what is sexual assault, what are your rights, because when we think of rape, and I asked my husband this today, I said to him, babe, when you think of rape, what do you think of? He was like, someone in a narrow alleyway being held down and forced to have sex. And I'm like, and that's the issue. When we make that rape, everything else that comes before it, someone touched my breast and I didn't want them to. This is a true story, this guy rubbed my bum in a picture twice, and I didn't say anything because friends were there, and I'm like, are they going to believe me? It was really awkward. Maybe I misinterpreted it. That's sexual assault. Yeah. And when you start letting these things know, then you can start to be like, come forward with it, because it's not just intercourse, forced intercourse that's rape. There's a plethora of things that are against the law.
Right, so I want to jump in real quick, right?
Yeah.
I agree with a lot of what you said. My thing about the statute of limitations is I think that when the crime involves another person, such as things like sexual assault, rape, murder, I'm not too sure about GBH and ABH depending on, the severity. But I feel like certain crimes shouldn't have statute of limitations, like rape and assault and murder. I think because and yes, the person that you were 10 years ago may not be the person that you are today, but I feel there has to be some acknowledgement, repercussions for being that person at some point, and I say it even using the example that you use of, God forbid, my younger brother's doing something of that nature, and, in 10 years' time. But you know what? Examples have to be set. And the reason why I think these examples need to be set is referring back to the case that Luanda mentioned. The fact that this girl's underwear was picked up and used against her. So we're teaching girls, do you know what? Don't dress in a particular way. You don't want to encourage men. But are we teaching men what consent is? Are we teaching men that just because someone is dressed a particular way, not even men, are we teaching boys? Are we teaching boys, don't touch that girl that way? Yeah, we're teaching that girl, no, don't wear a short skirt to school because you don't want boys looking at you. But are we teaching that boy, don't look at that girl whether or not she's wearing a skirt? like, this is why I feel like these particular crimes need to face some kind of repercussions, whether it's 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, a year later. I'm not gonna lie, when Jimmy Savile's case came out, I did think, the only reason why I thought, why is it coming out now, is because he's dead. And because he's dead, he cannot face those repercussions. That's the only reason why I'm like, you know, if you have the strength to do so, bring out these allegations or bring out these vile things whilst the perpetrators are still alive, so that they can be the ones to face it and not necessarily their families. Do you know what I mean? Other than that, I don't think there should be statute of limitations.
Look, let me just clarify then. I think for violent crimes, there shouldn't be a statute of limitations. But I'm talking about the reason why statute of limitations was brought in, because it does need to protect some people. Sometimes I'm sure all of us know somebody who did some madness when they're young and changed their life around, and you
of course,
that thing to be brought forward. I think in terms of violent crimes, I think there needs to be a statute of limitations. But we see in America, even certain states have updated things as this information has come forward, because it was only in 1991 in the UK it was made illegal for a man to rape his wife. Before that, before 1991, they said it was, well, not before 91, it was generally believed, but if you're married, it's not rape because you're married. And 1991 in the UK. So now the law has been changed. And that's why I'm saying laws need to be updated. They said in California, it was only since Bill Cosby that they have now thrown out the statute of limitations for sexual assault. Because they were like, a lot of women came forward for various reasons. Women come forward and people don't believe them. For Jimmy Savile, people come forward, but it's not, as Luanda said, it wasn't the right time. The Me Too movement has shifted things exponentially. So now women are being listened to. Also, and I think in Michigan as well, there was another claim there, so that the statute of limitations was extended for children, so that it was before that it was up to 19. If you didn't come forward as from child abuse up to the age of 19, they wouldn't hear you. Now they've extended that to 29 plus a few years on, and they're trying to make it wider because of a specific case. So I think with America, it's very difficult because every state is basically a country. They all have separate laws. For them to try and change the law across the whole of the United States, it has to be taken up to federal law and all of that. Every state should be looking to update their laws to serve the people of the state.
I think also that, like, with going back to the law and things like that, and it's frustrating when people are like, oh, well, if that happened to you, then why don't you talk about it? Why don't you come forward for it? I don't really think people understand how traumatic the process is, almost worse or almost as traumatic as the incident that happened to you, because you are then going to have to go to strangers, multiple strangers, and recount all of those details, every single detail, and inch by inch, like not like when you're telling a story to your friends, you're like, oh, this happened, blah, 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 you exaggerate, you have some fun, you laugh. Inch by inch, you will digest that story, and then you will do it again, and then you'll do it again, and then you'll go to court and you'll be treated like you're lying, so that it's going to happen again. It's like you're like, all of that can sometimes be worse than actually just trying to heal alone, instead of like going through that whole process and being exposed. And you know how if that happened to me, if I went to court and they held up my underwear, like I would definitely go to jail for whacking that man across his face. Like,
yes, I'm with you.
It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. So I think people need to have some more sympathy when they think about the way that these kind of things affect victims' lives, almost for the rest of your life, and the way that it will then unravel if you try to delve into it and try to speak to people who aren't sympathetic, maybe because it's their job to kind of just get the information and then goodbye. Or then people who it's their job to make it seem like you're lying because they're trying to get their client off, you know. But Anissa, I think you're going to say something. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, the whole topic about coming out is just an interesting one. Like, I had a topic with my friend, and it was just explaining to him that it's not always easy to come out from a woman's perspective.
So I think there's a lot of unlearning that men have to do, just because society has taught them to go after women in a certain way and things like that. So there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm sure us lovely ladies want to talk more about it.